So today we're going to look at bonding. Specifically, we're going to look at covalent bonding. Now, just a quick reminder, there's three main types of bonds: metallic bonds, which involve only metals; ionic bonds, which have a metal and a nonmetal, or a polyatomic ion; and covalent bonds, which are only nonmetals. Now, we learned in a previous video that ionic bonds transfer electrons from one atom to another atom in order to form our positive ion, which we call the cation, and our negative ion, which we call the anion. And it is an attraction between the positive and the negative charges that is what we consider the bond. And it's really not a bond, it's more of an attraction. So covalent bonds, what happens in a covalent bond, we have two neutral atoms, and these atoms come together and share electrons. Now, when we name a covalent compound, there are going to be a couple of rules. We are going to use prefixes. If there's only one of the element or atom in the first element, we don't use a prefix. For anions, they always get a prefix, and just like in our ionic, we will drop that last syllable and add IDE. So there's going to be some similarities and some differences. So here's the prefixes you need to know. We're going to go through 10. 1 is mono, 2 is di, 3 is tri, 4 is tetra or tetra, 5 is pent or penta, 6 is hex or hexa, 7 is hept or hepta, 8 is oct or octa, 9 is non or nona, and 10 is dec or deca. The A at the end, generally we include an A if it is followed by a consonant. We don't include the A if it is followed by a vowel. So let's look at some examples and see if we can't make the when do I use an A make more sense. All right, I have 2 nitrogens. So the prefix for 2 is di. Now, just like in ionic formulas, I'm going to take the first element and name it directly from the periodic table. So N is nitrogen. The difference here between ionic and covalent is ionic does not get prefixes, covalent does. So I have 2 fluorines. I'm going to drop the last syllable of fluorine and make it an ide, so fluorine will become fluoride. And I have 2 of them, and the prefix for 2 is di. So the name for N2F2 is dinitrogen difluoride. P is phosphorus. Now, I only have 1 phosphorus. The prefix for 1 is mono. However, if the first element has only 1, I do not use mono. Mono is the exception. Mono can only be used with the second element. 2 through 10 get used with both the first and the second element. Mono only gets used with the second. So in this case, I'm going to simply say phosphorus because that's the first element. And chlorine, I'm going to drop the last syllable and make that chloride. I have 5 of those bad boys. So 5 is pent or penta. C is a consonant. So I'm going to make it pentachloride. Because my A is a vowel for penta and is followed by a consonant C. So let's take a look at these. I have one nitrogen. It is the first element, so no mono. Mono can only be used with the second. I have 3 chlorines, so 3 is tri. And chlorine becomes chloride. We drop that last syllable and add IDE. H3P. I have 3 hydrogens, so 3 is tri. Hydrogen, straight from the periodic table because the first element gets the name from the periodic table. I have 1 phosphorus. Here's where I use mono. Phosphorus is the second element in the compound, so in this case I have to use mono, and it is phosphorus, which is going to become phosphide. CCl4. I have 1 carbon. Carbon is the first element, so no mono, just the carbon. I have 4 chlorines. 4 is tetra, or TeTr. Now chlorine starts with the C, which is a consonant, so I'm going to make it tetrachloride. P2O5. I have 2 phosphorus, so that's diphosphorus. 5 is pent or penta. Now, oxygen is an O, so I'm going to drop the A from penta and just make it pentoxide. All right, pentoxide. Now, if you're given the name and you want to write the formula, you're going to look at the prefixes and you're simply going to assign the value of the prefix to the elemental symbol. So nitrogen is an N, di means 2. Oxide is oxygen, and pent means 5, N2O5. Sulfur is an S. It has no prefix, so that means there's only 1. Fluoride is F, and hexa is a 6, so SF6. Nitrogen is an N. It has no prefix, so therefore there's only 1. Oxide is oxygen, which is an O. Now I have my prefix mono here. Mono is a 1. Remember, mono only gets used in the second element, never the first. 2 through 10 get used in both the first and the second naming. All right, sulfur has a 1 because there's no prefix. Triiodide. Tri is 3, and iodide is an I. Carbon tetrachloride. I have 1 carbon. Tetra is a 4, and chloride is Cl, so CCl4.